Mills fashions a kick back towards the wing. Fellaini! Left now, lines them up. It's coming back. Hawks is the biggest man there.
Yes, g'day guys. Welcome back to Red Time. Jarryd Barca and Mason Cox here to talk all the latest in the world of footy. We are online again today. Coxie and the Pies are, of course, playing in Perth this week. They're already over there. Mace, how are things over there in the West?
It's good, man. International travel, really, really tough. 4 hours on a flight. It is quicker to get to New Zealand than it is to get to Perth.
It is.
But it is good to be out here. It's beautiful weather out here in Perth. And no, I actually quite enjoyed it. It's a bit tamer, I would say. A little bit tamer part of Australia than Melbourne and Sydney. But I enjoy it.
Have you assimilated to the time zone?
I had a nice sleep in this morning. It was a bit unique, I will say, but no, you kind of get used to it. It's only 2 hours, so it's not too bad. I mean, I'm 17 hours away from America, so I think it's a decent hour difference. But no, 2 hours isn't too bad, and you just have a nice little sleep in, so it's actually quite nice.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a bit to get to. I'm sure there's a captain's run or something today, so we won't keep you for too long. As always, there is plenty happening. Massive weekend of games, which we'll look towards as well, and a bit of topic making news. We've got ball tracking technology. We've got some social media trash talking between players and clubs as well, which we'll touch on as well. I just want to go back very, very quickly to last week's game, though, against the Cats. Not to make you relive it. I don't want to dissect the game at all, but there was a moment late in that last centre bounce that you guys, just the way that you had it set up, you had Darcy Cameron, you had Seal Sidebottom, you had Scott Pendlebury in the centre circle. You also had over to the right of the screen, Nick Dacos drifting towards the centre half forward position, creating about, 20, 25 metres of space. It's not something that you see too often. So I just wanted to ask you, was that a set play? Is it a directive from the coaches and Craig McRae, or is that just pure instinct from the guys that are out there?
I think a lot of it was instinct. I mean, if you kind of look at a center bounce and knowing you need to get it forward to be able to get inside 50, because, I think at that point we're 3 points behind. It was one of those things where if he can open up space, knowing Nick was tagged, his person wasn't going to come off him and try to get the ball. He kind of opened up space for everyone else, and it's quite an unselfish play. The one thing that people don't really talk about, I guess, this week, or I haven't heard too much about it, is after the bounce and then the ball kind of jumbled about back and forth, and then Darcy Cameron had tackled and kind of put one hand up and got the free kick that actually got us to be able to get inside 50. And I thought that was quite smart. Like, I think a lot of people kind of look past that and the ability to just show the umpire that, hey, I'm not actually tackling him. He's holding the ball and just trying to do essentially what a lot of people do in that scenario, which is try to get another ball up, waste more time. He kind of showed to the umpire, no, I'm actually not trying to tackle him. He's just holding it in. Got the free kick, got the steal, kicked it inside 50. Jack Cripps obviously marks it. And what an incrable story. What if story? What if
the script writers? The script writers would have even struggled. Would have struggled watching that, thinking, "How the hell has this actually happened?"
It's an insane for finish. Him to kick that from 50, and he's a good kick from 50 too. So there's some players like myself. You look at someone like me, there's no chance. You go, yeah, game's over. But like him, I was like, there's actually a pretty decent chance he's going to slot this, but. Unfortunately, they all can't go through. But no, it was a smart play by Nick to be able to pull his player out, to be able to create more space for everyone else, hopefully get the ball forward. And I think a lot of people probably look past that stuff of an unselfish play that, because Nick is someone who does get the ball quite a bit, and we do look to him to try to link up the defense and the offense. And that play in that moment under the pressure, it was a credit to him to put his hand up and create that space for everyone else.
I actually have a theory there with Crisp's miss on goal. Because the siren went, he couldn't go around in his natural left arc that he usually does when he has those long shots on goal. So because he had to kick it over the player on the mark, he ran straight instead of going out and doing that arc, because it would have been called play on and the game would have ended. I'm actually putting it down to that, to be honest. That's my theory anyway. Back to Nick's positioning as well. So it's instinct. So is there any hesitation from Fly about those sort of things happening and leaving it up to the leaders that are out there on the field to make those judgment calls when the game is on the line, or does he have that trust in you guys?
No, he definitely has a trust in it. I mean, there are scenarios where we've got different styles of gameplay we go into, and that's directed by the coaches, throughout the game, depending on the scenario. But overall, I think we're a very experienced group. We've got great players that have been around for a long time that understand how to, I guess, be able to perform in certain scenarios and things like that. So I think he gives us quite a bit of leeway. And you look at someone like Scott Pendlebury in the middle there. He he's almost another coach on the field, so he can kind of make those decisions and help out some of the other players to be able to make sure they're in the right positions. But realistically, I think everyone on our team is pretty well across everything that kind of happens within a game and different scenarios that go forward. And whenever that does happen in those kind of pressure moments, I think it's almost the directive from the coaches to be able to get that message out there. There's not enough time a lot of the time, so you really do just kind of go based on reaction and instinct and what you think is going to be able to get the job done. And I think that moment, in that dying moments of that game over the weekend, that was something that just kind of happened and was a bit of instincts from the players on the ground.
Yeah, just on fly as well. Obviously not the result that you guys would have wanted, but he did like the reaction from the players when Jack Crisp did miss that shot on goal. You talk about that act like winners mantra, which he speaks about a lot in the media nowadays, that he wants you guys to live by, which you obviously do. I think it became public for the first time. Maybe it stemmed from, I think it was the qualifying final in 2022. So a heartbreaking loss. A few boys are on the ground, on the haunches after a really tight game. And he came out in the press conference afterwards and said, no, I want my team to act like winners in those scenarios. You come back, you win the next week, you go to Sydney to play in a prelim. You lose that by a point, another heartbreaking loss. But there was a stark difference between the final siren reactions between both of those games. So it was clearly something that you guys learned. And clearly, as I said, something that you live by now. But how much is that winner's mentality driven by Fly internally? And what does it look like in practice, both in terms of the review, team meetings, and the behavior of the players for the week as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think even just in our training and stuff, we have like a winner's mentality in a sense of like a drill's not done until, kind of like the whistle blows, and, you make sure you try to jog from one place to another or get off the ground as soon as you can. And, whatever you're doing, kind of stuff in the forward line, it's like you always finish on a goal. You don't just let the ball just kind of roll out to the ground, then you go to the next thing. It's like, no, you need to finish every single time and make sure that's, you try to make it as much of a game scenario as possible. But I think, like you mentioned over the weekend, one of the coolest things, and I'm sure people would have saw it, Jack Crisp unfortunately misses the goal. Everyone gets around him. But then there's this kind of like beautiful moment straight after that where his wife and his kids run out onto the ground and give him like a massive hug after he kind of shaked all the hands of all the players. And I think that was kind of one of those moments of, you probably don't see that as much from other teams, the family atmosphere and things like that. And for someone who had, a great accomplishment over the weekend of playing that many games straight, and for him to have his family kind of there right after he kind of missed the game-winning goal, to not say console him, but just congratulate him on the day and everything that kind of came with it and the week that was. That was kind of like, that kind of hit the heart pretty hard. And that was kind of a beautiful moment. I think that's like a culture that Fly's going to be able to build. And the winner's mentality of, whether we win or lose, you're not going to be able to tell on field. The way we prep for games, the way we train, everything else, we want to train a consistently high standard. So it gives us the best opportunity, no matter who we play on what week and whatever occasion, to be able to win the game. So that's something that he's kind of really pushed and implemented throughout the years of him as coach. And, I think anyone that is a head coach or is, trying to coach people at a high level, that's kind of the status that they want. That's what they want their players to do, is try to win at every single opportunity they can. And every single moment, it's those 1%ers that add up to be able to create, a positive culture and environment that, really does enjoy winning.
Mate, as I touched on, you blokes on a 5-day break. So you play that game on a Saturday night. You got a really quick turnaround. You fly to Perth on Tuesday. You play a game on Thursday night. I'm just curious to get your insight as a player, how your week is actually structured on such a short turnaround, especially when there's interstate travel. How does it look for you?
It's quite different. We obviously don't have as much time to train, so we might lose, one main training session depending on however long the break is. And then because we're flying all the way to Perth, we've actually come over a little bit earlier than we actually would probably before, if it was like a 6 or 7 day break. But it's just a lot more, I think, of, wrapping up the game before as quickly as possible and, doing as much recovery as you can. So a lot of this week is probably more recovery, flush the legs out in a few runs and stuff with training, and a bit lighter sessions. And then, you pretty much get straight into the next game, which after a loss like that, on the siren, I think everyone's pretty excited to get to the next game like as soon as possible and just kind of get into it. So, for us, it's a lot of recovery, flush out the legs, get ready for the next game. And then, really more than anything is you just don't have as much time to prepare. So you really got to get straight into the next game as quickly as possible and start really dissecting the style of play and the people you're going to play against.
Yeah, so those adjustments that you do have to make on the 5-day break, you speak about what is prioritized, which obviously in this case is the recovery stuff, what's scaled back, or maybe it's the physical training sessions that you won't have as much of this week. I'm curious to know, though, as well, what about opposition analysis and all that sort of stuff? Is that still to the same scale as normal weeks? Is it the same amount? Is it scaled back a little bit, or is it all just the same but crammed into smaller amount of days?
Yeah, it's same. It's kind of crammed in a small amount of days. A lot of it's put online, so we'll have people like record kind of the meetings and stuff, and then be able to give it to us to be able to do throughout the days that we're doing recovery, so we can try to keep the 2 to 3 days before the game the same, and then try to preempt, I guess, all the meetings and stuff and the information. We can kind of drip feed that through the days we have off or some of our downtime to try to get us up to schedule for playing against Fremantle. So I think obviously with the beauty of technology and everything else, we can kind of, be able to, cut that time a little bit to be able to, get the education that we need for the game over the weekend and try to get it in as soon as possible. And coaches, it's a bit different doing a Zoom presentation to yourself and then giving it out to people rather than doing it in front of people in a meeting. So it's always quite funny just hearing how different a coach is whenever he's kind of doing a team dissection over a Zoom meeting rather than in front of everyone.
Do you actually notice the difference between having 5 days to prepare compared to like a 7-day week or even a 6-day week? Is the difference actually that noticeable, especially when you're out there playing?
Yeah, I think obviously from a physical standpoint, having 2 extra days of recovery would be phenomenal, right? Like everyone would want that. 5 days travel. There's a bit going on this week. Don't get me wrong, but we prepared ourselves to be able to put our best foot forward for the weekend. And whether it's we've played Anzac days on 4-day breaks and 5-day breaks and things like this, so I think we're kind of not used to it, but we've had the experience before, so we understand, I guess, the best way to be able to prepare our body, prepare our team to be able to play over the weekend. And you kind of rely on those experiences over, times like this where you might not have as much time to be able to prepare for the next weekend. And for us, I think we just continually try to put our best foot forward and, be able to put the process in place to make sure that we feel comfortable that we are across everything that we need to know before we go into the game and everyone's on the same page.
Not that it'll concern you or the rest of your teammates, mate, but Fly did come out in the press conference, the weekly presser yesterday, and he did confirm that Scott Pendlebury, Brody Myercheck, Jordan Ngoe, Braden Maynard won't be taken over to Perth. They're not there. They're not playing this week. They're being managed. I think Brody Myercheck might actually have some sort of adductor injury. But that's significant star power and experience that comes out of the team. You're not going to lack for too much experience, obviously, with the players that you're still going to have out there. But the coach's decision to manage senior players, how is that received by the rest of the playing group? Does it reinforce the trust in the squad's depth, or does it feel like it's a calculated risk?
No, I think we have a trust in our team to be able to get the job done, no matter who's there, and it's a next up mentality. And I think we've had some guys that are playing the AFL that are AFL level, and it gives them an opportunity to be able to show themselves on the biggest stage. And I think Brody Marchek might have had I think it was an abdominal strain. I want to say he was playing through the last game, stuff like that. So the fact that we have people healthy and available, it kind of gives us this opportunity where we don't have to push guys through injuries, that might affect them later on down the road. Like, for us with our depth at the moment, it's something we're very fortunate to have, and hopefully it continues. And I just kind of look at it now and I'm going like, well, why wouldn't you use the depth that you have to try to, keep your best team out there for as long as possible and try to be healthy going into, the back end of the season and throughout the season, try to continue to get wins on the board. So, we've got 4 guys with a lot of experience that aren't coming over now, but I think, as most people would understand, we've got a very experienced team that, can be able to, pick up where they left off and be able to, perform. And hopefully we can, have those people do that on the stage at Optus Stadium on Thursday night.
Yep, I think it's 3. I could be wrong. I think it's 3 teams that have had a 5-day break this season. None of them have won yet. So hopefully for your sake, 4 times a charm. Mate, moving on, ball tracking technology and the score review system is back on the agenda this week. There's obviously one perhaps controversial call late in your game last week. We don't need to touch on that, but it's pretty much every match in every round of footy that there is some sort of inconclusive decision that's being made with the score review. Decisions that leave you scratching your head as to how a billion-dollar industry like the AFL doesn't have advanced technology that can get decisions absolutely correct. I'll put it to you that way. So the process, I think, needs to improve. I don't know where you stand on that because right now it is just guesswork. But where do you stand on this, and how overdue do you think advanced technology is in the AFL?
It absolutely baffles me that this hasn't been fixed yet. And I'm sure the AFL's trying. Don't get me wrong. I don't think there's a lack of effort in that sense. But I came to this country. I'd never known really any kind of sport in Australia, really. And I saw cricket for the first time. And I saw the fact that they had 5 different ways to figure out if a ball had touched a player or touched a stick in the ground. And I kind of thought to myself, if we can do that for cricket, surely we can figure something out for AFL. And they've tried. I'm not sure if it's actually connected, but there are microchips in the balls this year, and I'm not sure if that's connected to the actual, goal review system of some sort. But I haven't really seen them use that in a sense. I think if everyone looks over the weekend and stuff, it looks as though
they
the
did
exact
trial
same
it.
way
Sorry,
as before.
they trialed it in the VFL and VFLW last year. They did trial ball tracking and the sensors that they put in the Sherrins, and I think they used it in the AFLW last season as well, but there's been nothing from the AFL to suggest that they're implementing it into the AFL anytime soon. So the chip will track the speed of the ball, the way it spins, the distance traveled when it crosses the goal line, et cetera, et cetera. But as you say, whether there's chips in the ball in the AFL right now, we wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, I don't think many people have heard about it. Yeah, the ball chip might actually be to show distance the ball travels and stuff throughout the game. It might be tied to the review system, but I kind of think we need to take, I guess, a bit of advice from other sports, right? You look at tennis, Hawkeye, it can be able to show you the smallest smidget amount of a ball being in the tennis. Like, if it could be
that's
that
accurate
specific,
to the millimeter.
oh,
It's accurate
ridiculous.
to the millimeter. It's nuts, yeah. Whether it's accurate.
That's out there. Yeah, whether it's accurate, who knows? But I mean, I kind of look at that. I'm like, surely there's some way we can implement that. Like, who can do the stuff with the cricket? Who knows? Like, I feel like there's resources out there. Maybe the AFL has to invest, a certain amount of money to be able to create those resources specific to AFL and the way the ball moves and getting touched and, the goal line and crossing over, I guess, the threshold of that. But I just kind of look at it, and I think it's one of those things that people for years and years and years have kind of complained and whined and been frustrated by this scenario. And as players, I think we are too. And it's something I think we look at as the technology exists out there. We just have to find the best way to be able to use it and implement it within the AFL to make sure whenever these things do go, like the ball is close to crossing the line and there's this big call in the final, whatever it is, and we're wondering if someone touched it or not, there's conclusive evidence of whether or not someone has or hasn't, rather than us just kind of saying, oh, well, there was an umpire that kind of saw it, yes, kind of thought yes because of the way they reacted, and they're going to call that behind. I look at back to it was the game, I think it was Tom Lynch or something, and he had like kicked a point and he celebrated it like a goal in a final, and then all of a sudden the umpire thought it was a goal, and then everyone just assumed it was a goal. And I was like, how are we using player reaction to determine whether or not something was physically like a yes or a no statement, or you have physically actually crossing the line the proper way? I don't know, but I think there's got to be a better way to do it, and I'm sure the IFL is working on it, and hopefully it gets fixed soon. But yeah, maybe we look to other sports to be able to help us out.
Yeah, we talk about cricket and the DRS system that they have, the edge, the snicko, the ball tracking, the hotspot that they have. Soccer with the VAR, which has its criticisms as well, but you can score a goal and it can be called back because of an offside. At least they're able to do that because they get a decision right. I think we just scrap the soft call. I don't know why we have a soft call. We rely on the goal umpire's decision to say, I think it was touched. So you're just guessing. And then when it's inconclusive evidence from the arc, it's like, we'll just say it's touched. It's not accurate. It is genuinely just guesswork. And that to me isn't good enough. As I said, for an elite sport, a professional sport, billion-dollar industry, for that to still be happening, the soft call has got to go, in my opinion. It has massive implications. It can determine results of games, and you think about it happening in finals. It's genuinely not good enough.
Do you think it's maybe the fact that the AFL wants to keep tradition of removing technology from the game? I mean, there's not really technology in many other parts of AFL. It is very much a game that's just based
you look
on
at
every
sport in the world.
Umpires.
Yeah. I acknowledge that our game is complicated and I get it, but sometimes you just got to move with the times. And something for a score, you don't need to use technology for everything. You can't pay it too high because the camera said so. I think that sort of still needs the human interpretation. But for something like a score, to me, it just seems easy enough to actually introduce something more advanced that can at least get us the right decisions. It's not about right or wrong necessarily, You want to get things as correct as possible, but when you're looking at the arc right now and you're seeing such consistent inconclusiveness with that vision that we have, we need 4K cameras. I don't know why we don't have them. We need something that works, mate. Tell me what the solution is. Scrap the soft call. I'm serious.
I agree.
Anyway.
No, I totally agree.
I think some of the reservations some people might have is how long it might take to get the right decision. So I just spoke about the VAR in soccer. Sometimes it takes a lot of time to review things. I think we don't really want that stop-start nature in our game. Would you be in favour of, or more in favour of, getting the decision right regardless of how long it takes? Or would you rather it just be, whatever happens, let's just keep the game going?
I'm happy to wait as long as it's not over a minute. I think anything over a minute is probably a bit too long. You look at it takes 30 seconds to take a set shot, right? You get 30 seconds to be able to take a set shot. 2 of those seems like a bit of an obnoxious amount of time to make a decision. But as a player on the field, obviously you're in that high anticipation mode, and you're kind of in that high adrenaline mode, and like sitting there staring at a TV, essentially at the ground, waiting for it to tell you if it was a goal or not is not always, it kind of brings the whole kind of, I guess, level of excitement down from the game. But
yeah,
I kind of think one of those things where there's going to be a scenario where it's a win or go home game. It's all on the line, and a decision like that is going to be make or break to a game, and it's going to be so important to get it right. And if we just kind of brush by it or say, opinion here, there, and it's incorrect, and then we realize that later with technology and vision, and we could have waited 15 seconds more to get the correct call, I think that's going to cause a lot of issues, and it's eventually going to happen, right? It'll eventually happen just based on time.
Yeah. I think the good news is the AFL is at least trying to find a solution. So for that, I do give them credit. But, mate, a bit's been made of the Bailey Smith comments post-game last week and his little jibe at his former club, the Doggies. Bontempelli bit back at a morning show as well. You had the response on his Instagram story, I think it was, from Bailey Smith as well, with another jibe. And there was a bit of back and forth. But the whole idea of player club trash talking and banter, players being out there with their opinions and taking to social media to I guess, put some jabs on former clubs. Where do you stand on this? Do you think it's good for the game? Do we want more of it from players?
I kind of love it because it adds entertainment, right? I think who knows the details of what actually happened whenever Bailey Smith got traded and what was going on. No one knows the conversations behind the scenes, but obviously it wasn't. There was a little bit of love lost. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be making these conversations or making these statements. I think the big loser out of this, though, is Ballarat. Ballarat just getting punched out by everyone. Oh man, they're trying their best.
That's a good
building
point.
a stadium over there. It's a tough. It's been a tough week for Ballarat more than anything, I think. But no, I do love a bit of trash talk here and there. I think there is a line that's drawn. Who knows? I think you never know until you actually cross the line that you've crossed the line. But I don't mind the little jabs back and forth. Like you said, you never know actually the stories behind the scenes of what's happened between them. Obviously, Bontempelli is definitely going to stand up for his team and that kind of that jab at him, which I'm all for. And it just kind of builds up the anticipation for whenever they play each other. And you best believe Bailey Smith is going to have a target on his back from all the Bulldogs boys. That's for sure.
Yeah, they play in a couple of weeks, so we are looking forward to that one. That's going to be very entertaining to watch. See, I'm the same. I look at it as harmless fun and banter, as long as there is a line that isn't crossed, which I don't think it was in this case, but I'm the same. It's fun, it's entertaining, creates a bit of theatre, and I think the game overall as a product is more fun to actually follow when you do see players having these personalities, especially on social media as well. So for me, I think it's a tick and it's okay. But I will say, I don't know if we're ever going to get to a stage where we are like the NBA or the NFL and they sort of have that no F's given personalities. They say whatever they want. The trash talk is immense in those sports. Could you imagine the outrage in Australia if we had athletes that were as brash and unfiltered as they do in the States?
Oh man, Australia would lose their mind. I feel like I'm brash at times and lose it. Just people don't always love it. Some people do, some people don't. But I do think Australia is a bit of a conservative sense. The fact that there's actually terminology of tall poppy syndrome to be able to explain this probably tells you there's an issue of it within itself. But
good point.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the fact that you have words that actually describe the situation we're talking about probably tells you there's an issue. But No, I think it's heading that way. Do I think it'll ever get to the extent that the US is? I don't think so, but I think there'll be some kind of middle ground that Australia kind of lands at with their athletes. I do love it. It's part of the entertainment of it, right? The whole thing of,
Yeah.
I guess, playing AFL in sport is to entertain people. And, whether it's your athletic ability or kind of, I guess, the story that's built up between the rivalries and things like that, it all adds to that entertainment factor. And I think Australia is starting to, I guess, be a bit more accepting of that, and it's taking players to break that kind of, I guess, that barrier. I look at people like Jack Inman, right, and if he would have been doing that stuff maybe 10 years ago, oh man, imagine the backlash and stuff he would have got. But now we're kind of celebrate it, It's like, the
He'd be
Hawks are
exiled from
fun,
the
and
league for
exciting,
sure.
and I feel
Yeah.
like all the Hawks boys are doing it now, and they're all kind of
Yeah.
almost celebrated, and they kind of have that as their personality as a team. And, it's kind of looked at as, acceptable nowadays. And it's kind of cool to see people be able to be themselves and have a personality. And, I think for a lot of people, it is entertaining. That's kind of what we're here to do.
All right, we're into the final stretch of the pod, mate. Our favourite segment. Don't be surprised if. Let's make some predictions. I'm going to get us underway. I think we've got two each this week, so let's get to it. Don't be surprised if the Suns beat the Dogs this week. 6 in a row up in the NT they are, so they just don't get beaten there. No matter who travels there, teams do find it tough to go up there. So no matter how good the Bulldogs' form is, and I think they can put up a fight, you don't tip against the Suns in the NT. So that's my first one.
Suns are very good at playing in high humidity places. So I think Darwin
they're used to it.
They're used to it. So I'll agree on that one. I'll go. My don't be surprised if Port Adelaide take the showdown over in Adelaide. Now, Port Adelaide, I think they've lost one more game than Adelaide. People, if you were to look at probably the Adelaide versus Port Adelaide game, most people would pick Adelaide. But I think this is an opportunity for Port Adelaide to get their fans on board for the year. Obviously, it's kind of like us in Carlton, right? If you win that game, that's one of those that stick out in all the fans' minds and gets people on the bandwagon to support you throughout the year. So, I'm not going to say who I'm going for, but I will say I think Port Adelaide, a fair chance to beat Adelaide at Adelaide Oval this week, and that's who I'm going to put my money on.
I cannot agree with you less on that. I don't know how they're going to stop Adelaide's offensive firepower. My next one, don't be surprised if Ross Lyon grills more of his teammates on the bench moving forward. So the criticism he cops for that stern talking to of Hugo Garcia against the Lions in round 7, I think it was quite immense. I didn't know what for. Clearly it worked because Hugo Garcia's come out against the Dockers last week. He's played a really good game. He's earned a Rising Star nomination off the back of that. So clearly he learnt his lesson. I think Ross is a really smart coach. I think he's tactically astute, and clearly the players trust him. Whatever he did, it worked. Whatever he says, the players clearly listen to. So good on him, and well done to Hugo Garcia.
Yeah, well done, Ross the boss. Everyone takes feedback in different ways. You just got to know your players. That's the number one thing.
Yeah.
I'll go my don't be surprised. Now, Fremantle, like you said, had pretty tough loss against St. Kilda last week. I reckon they're going to come out swinging on Thursday. I'll be firsthand experience there on the day. But they had a hard loss last week, and I think they're going to be looking to make a statement at home out in Optus. So it's going to be hot early on Thursday night. Make sure you have a watch. It'll be good fun. And like I said, I think it'll be a really good game and very entertaining.
Yeah, different team at home than they are away. It was only 2 weeks ago that they gave Adelaide a little belting, and then we saw what Adelaide did to Carlton last week. So who knows what can happen, but it is going to be a very exciting game. Mason, thanks for joining us, mate. We'll see you back in the studio next week.
Yep, I'll be back, brother.
Good luck tomorrow night as well. To everyone at home, thanks for listening or watching. Enjoy the footy this week. Don't forget your tips, and we'll speak to you next time.